Hello, nice to meet you. Please take a seat. So we will be starting right now. So thank you very much for coming to this talk. To be so many, I think it's a topic that may interest, of course, clients, users of Odoo, but as well as partners. That's really what I had in mind when I was thinking about preparing this talk, is just to give an overview of everything that is around an upgrade, and also to do a live upgrade with you, so today. So that will be the main, let's say, part of my talk, is just to try together to upgrade the database that I have on my computer in an on-premise hosting, and to try to upgrade it with a small customization in it. So that you can, of course, prepare and write questions during this talk. As a reminder, it should last around 40 minutes, so that if you have questions that you want to take note during when I'm speaking, you can do it right now. And if you don't have time to scan the QR code because you are still working, don't worry, I will still display the QR code at the end of the talk, okay? So we'll have time to scan it at that moment. Before, let's say, writing and preparing the slides, I made a research on the internet. My question was, I want to find the 3 biggest human fears that are existing in the world. And actually, I found out that the 3 biggest human fears are the fear of spiders, the fear of empty fridges, and the fear of upgrades. As you may guess, today we'll discuss about the fear of friendly spiders, okay? No, not at all. Of course, we'll discuss about the fear of upgrades. And it's actually very surprising to me, because I think upgrades, once you understand it, is something that you can probably master. And that's exactly what we are going to do today. So we'll start with the very basics. Probably some of you will think, okay, that's very easy, but if at some point you learn something, that means that I will have achieved my goal. So let's start. The agenda is the following. So first, I want to give you let's say, an overview of what is an upgrade in theory, and why do we upgrade actually in Odoo? What is the purpose of that? Then we will see what are the different type of upgrade process depending on the hosting that you have. Finally, well, as a third step, we'll discuss about what's new in upgrade. I mean, you are here at the Odoo experience, you expect new stuff. Let's see if there is anything new in that topic as well. As I said, the 4th point will be the practical one. We'll do an upgrade all together. And finally, as I want to provide you also with tips and tricks, you will have the chance as a 5th point to see when I would suggest you to upgrade for your own Odoo database or for one of your customer one. All right, my story starts with actually R&D, so what they are doing here. So if we take a look at when the planet just started to exist, and today we have, let's say, a timeline here. And the idea is that since a few years already, we have some upcoming versions that are coming every year. And here we take a look, for example, at the versions from the last 4 years. So starting from 16, 17, 18, and 19. Why do we upgrade? Well, we upgrade because, and first it needs, so for each different version, we have one specific source code, and we decide to have some new versions in Odoo because we want to release new features. That's, let's say, the mindset of Odoo. That's how we make the tool evolve, and we know that we cannot, let's say, probably, release new features, let's say, every day in a version if we want to keep it stable. So that's the purpose, and that's, let's say, our assumption here in that talk. Of course, when we release a major version, we don't leave it as it is. We still want to keep it updated, and if, of course, we notice that there is a very big issue, we still make some regular bug fixes on the same version. That's actually what's happening every week on any databases, that has this feature allowed, is that indeed some bug fixes are pushed by the R&D on the source code. Let's imagine that I created my database in 2023. I have a lot of chance that it was created in 17. Since then, I had actually one choice, one opportunity, which is the fact of upgrading to Odoo 18. But I could not have the possibility to downgrade to Odoo 16, okay? In Odoo, it's not possible. So in order to benefit from those new features, the process is the upgrade. Now we can take a look at what's happening in between 2 versions, because of course, the R&D is still working, and since a few versions, they are releasing what we call the rolling release, which means that in between 2 versions, we have some intermediate versions that are coming, and that contain some new features that are released. something to note is that those kind of minor versions are only available on the SaaS hosting, so or on Odoo Online. For example, on the Sage, you cannot have access to those minor versions. The idea is that on the Sage, we want to have stability, while on Odoo Online, we want maybe to have more new features incoming, and we are pretendly, of course, more standard, which allow us to keep, this kind of regular upgrade. We are at the Odoo experience, and so today you see a lot of new features. You see that Odoo 19 is very nice, and maybe you want to use it as soon as possible, and that's indeed something that you can do, but not today. Not if you have a database that is already created. Indeed, what you can expect is after a small delay, after a few weeks, probably, to have the upgrade script available that will allow you to move from any past version to Odoo 19. For you to know, actually the first database to ever upgrade is Odoo.com. So it's a database that we use internally at Odoo. We are, I think, around 5,000 users, and we use mostly all the apps. So we make the crash test, of seeing, okay, does it work in the new version for all the things that we do? And of course, we try to adapt it accordingly for who is coming next afterwards. All right, so here I tell you about the script, here the script that allows us to do the upgrade. But what is a script? For some people, it may not be so clear, what we mean about a script regarding an upgrade. Let's take a database, okay? A database in Odoo is composed of two things. First, the source code, and second, the data. Let's imagine that I have a database in Odoo 17, and that I want to upgrade to Odoo 18. One first scenario that I can have is that Odoo has, let's say, for example, added a new field in an existing model. If I take a look then at my database in Odoo 18, I will get a new piece of code in my source code, but most probably my data will not be changed. So I keep the same set of data, but I change my code. In that case, we don't need a script, okay? So actually, by simply updating the code, it makes it work, on the new version. Of course, you can guess what's coming now is the fact, okay, but what happens now if, of course, I have some update in my code and not like a new piece of code that is added. For example, an existing field type is changed, and the data needs to be converted as well. The fact of updating the data is what will require you to create a script. Okay, so that's really what is a key information to keep in mind is that, okay, I need to update my data, then I need to have a script to do that. A script is something very technical to be written, okay, and that's actually something that we will do together during the exercise, but we will not go very far. If you want to know more about script, of course, that's something that you will have the chance to discuss, but I will come back to this afterwards. Maybe if some of you, let's say, are on Odoo since a few years, what I show you now on the slides can be some painful examples of past upgrades that you may have. For example, in Odoo 16, the subscription model was removed, and it was merged actually with the sale order model. I cannot actually show you the script of the upgrade, but if we took a look at the script of that moment, it was actually very long, because they had to organize all the switch of the data from the past subscription model to the sale order model. And just to tell you, like those scripts are still updated nowadays. So we have still some corner cases that are seen and observed today and that needs to be adapted. It's the same for the analytic accounting in Odoo 17, like with the big changes in accounting and the fact that now we move from a many-to-one field to a JSON field to allow analytic distribution. As you may guess, data were changed, and so for that, we need script as well. And those two scripts were very long, okay? But actually, in practice, not all the scripts are so long. Okay, so that was it for the theory around upgrade. Now, let's take a look at what we have, depending on the hosting that we use. So yes, if we think about the upgrade process, I have actually 3 things to tell you about. Because according to me, the upgrade is about is about testing, and testing. Okay. It's true that when you do an upgrade, if you do it directly in production, like in your real database, you have a lot of chance that something doesn't work. Okay, in your production database. And think about it. Like maybe your database will be shut down. Maybe you cannot access a model. Maybe you cannot access the website. I mean, you lose money, you lose time. You need to correct it in production. You are in a hurry, and that's really a problem. While if you test your upgrade before, everything at least is planned. Of course, you invest time in the testing, but that's time that you will probably not spend afterwards trying to solve like a problem. That's what I could say, that one test a day keeps the doctor away. Then what we have is that, of course, in Odoo, we have 3 different types of hosting. We have Odoo Online, Odoo.sh, and on-premise. Okay, so if you decide to install it on your own server. Depending on your hosting, the way to test the upgrade is pretty different. So here, let's just highlight what are the key exceptions that we have, depending on the hosting platform. And the first one is Odoo Online. On Odoo Online, you have the rolling release available. So you can upgrade actually up to 5 or yes, maybe 6 times per year. You have to test your database upgrade through a duplicated database, as you can do on Odoo.com. And the upgrade is completely launched from Odoo.com once you have access to, let's say, My Databases page. On Odoo.sh, the situation is a bit different because there you have only access to major versions, as we discussed. The testing should be done on the staging branch. So pretty different. It means that one staging in your project will be dedicated for that, at that moment, of course. And the upgrade is launched on that site from Odoo.sh, plus you need, of course, to commit the code that you have updated to make it work in the new version. And the last case is Odoo, when you host it on your own server. In that case, same. You can, or at least you should, only use the major versions only. If you decide to, let's say, still install a minor version, you might get an issue because, like on-premise, will not really allow you to make an upgrade afterwards to a new version that is major one. And to upgrade an on-premise database, you can do it through a command line or with the platform upgrade.odoo.com. That's actually our example today. So what we'll do is to upgrade an on-premise database, and we'll have the chance to do it at that moment. Here I tell you about upgrade.odoo.com, and that's actually, if you want to leave the room now, you will get all the information that you need on the platform, okay? So actually my talk is not really useful, but thank you for coming. No, but let's see that. Actually, I can leave it like this, but let's see actually if I move to that page here. Yes, what we have in it. It's very clear, it's very small, at least it's very condensed, but indeed, depending on the platform that you have, you get some guidelines explaining how it should be done. As I told you, we'll do in that talk the upgrade regarding the on-premise hosting. And actually, you see that you have 2 options. The option regarding the form is way too easy. I don't want to ease my task, so we'll not do it. Okay, but basically, you send your database to Odoo, and you ask them to do the upgrade by themselves. Here what we'll do is to use the command line, okay? Maybe my screen is a bit small, but I will ask you to keep that in mind, okay? And I will ask one of you to come here to my desk and to write it down when we will do the upgrade, okay? So that's clear? Everyone has it in mind? Perfect. No, but okay, so now we can move on. So before making the practical case, let's discuss about what's new in upgrade. Actually, nothing is new, okay? So it's a bit of teasing, but actually you can still upgrade from any version in Odoo, and that's really important to insist on that point. Either if you are on Odoo 9 or Tiny ERP, I don't know if it's still possible, but you can still upgrade, okay? And Odoo upgrade team will still be there to help you to do the upgrade. That's part of the subscription that you have with Odoo. But since a few months ago, maybe, the logic was that we were supporting the versions of the last 3 years. And actually, users want to get support. Support is what allows them maybe to get some bug fixes or to get some help on the questions. And actually, the support of Odoo is still doing it for the last 3 major versions, at least it was the case. And these are the consequence, is that actually most of the subscriptions that we have in Odoo were then, say, located in a way in the last versions that we had. So it was doing the job. Let's say by just making a constraint on the support, people were upgrading because they were willing to keep, let's say, the new version as much as possible. Today, the logic is a bit different because we heard a feedback from the market, from the users, and now it appears that the support has changed depending on the hosting platform that we have. On Odoo Online, nothing changes. People have to stay within the version of the last 3 years. On Odoo.sh, it can be extended up to 5 years, but it should be made on demand only. On Odoo on-premise, like every versions are covered, which means that any customers can stay on any versions and benefit from the support. But you need to know that if you are, let's say, on a version let's say, older than the last 3 years, you have to pay a fee for that, which is based on your annual subscription. I think you got probably, or you saw a communication about Fabien about this, and it should be applied during the next year. If you have questions about that, of course, feel free to ask your account manager and not me. So, to keep in mind, what we have is that your feedback was to ask for long-term support, to avoid upgrading frequently. But my advice today is different. I would still advise you to upgrade as frequently as possible. It's a way for you to spare money, of course, but also to benefit from those very nice features that you see at the Odoo experience. All right, so I think we moved on the last 3 points. So now let's discuss about this practical case. So what I have is that I have an Odoo.16 database installed on my computer. I use it mainly for accounting and budget follow-up. I have a wide company where I need to assign responsible per budget line so that I can make a precise follow-up of what is done, on each budget line. But, I mean, I'm still on Odoo 16, it becomes quite old, and I want to benefit from the new version of Odoo 18. Of course, I cannot do it on Odoo 19, as you may guess, because it's not available yet. Then, in order to meet this requirement of the responsible per budget line, what I did is that I created a small module, a custom module, which allows me to select on each of my budget line in Odoo 16 a responsible for that. Let me show you. So for that, what I can do is actually to leave it like this. But so to go to my terminal, and I will simply here launch my database, which is this one. And you can see what is inside of it. So very simple. I did not install so many apps, but actually here I have my accounting application. And if I go here in accounting and budgets, I will see my different budgets. Let's create a new one. Okay, we are the Odoo experience. Why not creating a budget for the OXP? I will assign a certain period to it for, let's say, the month of September. And let's create one line in which I will assign here, thanks to my custom field, which is this one, let's say a user to it, and a planned amount of 1,000. Very good. So here, in front of you, I just created a record. Of course, all the purpose will be that this exact same record should be in Odoo 18 after the upgrade. Okay? But how to do that? That's the whole question. And actually, I will show you that, but the thing is that the budgets have changed a lot in Odoo 18. So if we make the comparison between the two versions, we will see that we have actually many new features that have arrived, but also that the name of the models and views have changed. So yes, I went a bit too fast, but the idea is that, of course, I want to provide you with the let's say, the upgrade recipe. So do you want to know the secret recipe of the Krabby Patty? I don't have it, okay? But what I have is a secret recipe of a successful upgrade. And here it is. First, it's important for us to investigate the new version, to understand what is inside and understand exactly maybe how we can adapt our module to it. So here I'm in Odoo 16, very easy. Once I'm on my model in Odoo 16, I have the chance that I have a URL at the top. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. But here we can see that the model that we are on is called crossover budget. Then if I go, let's say, on my record, I will see that in my model, I have another model, which are my lines, the lines of the budget. To know the name of that field and to know the model that is related to it, I can simply activate debug mode. For that, I can make Ctrl-K and type debug. And very easily, then, once it will be loaded, perfect, I can go and look at my fields and maybe look for my line and see how it is called. So the field is called crossover budget line, and the name of my model is crossover budget lines. Okay, so here I know then that I have, let's say, my main model, which is crossover budget, and that I need to add my custom field here on my crossover budget lines. Now, if I go to an Odoo 18 database, okay, it's not the same one, okay? So I will not try to trick you, because here you see that I have a layer at the top telling me that it is really a presentation database. But if I go there to my budget, first I will see that it has changed as a name. So now it's analytic budget. I can still open it. In Odoo 18, the way to see the name of the model is a bit different, but I can still activate debug mode, and I will see it here. So the budget has changed. Now I am in a budget that is called budget.analytic. If I still open it and take a look at the fields in it and at the line, I will see that the field has changed as well. It is now called budget line IDs, and the name of the model is budget line. So that's our first step. We investigated each version and we understand what are the changes that were made. And basically here, from 16 to 18, basically my models are different. So, second step is to adapt my custom module. So it was working and you saw it in Odoo 16. I need to make sure it works in Odoo 18. So what is a module in Odoo? I will not make a full developing lesson today, of course, it's not really the purpose of that. But if we go here to my, let's say, folder in which I have all of my apps, as you see here, I have my module in version 16, which I called Budget Custom. In that model, I have actually two main things. I have my, in that, let's say, module, I have two main things. I have my model and I have my view. My model is my field, my data in a way, where I will store my data. The views is how I will insert it in my interface. In 16, I had actually to create one file on my account budget here, actually on my crossover budget line, sorry, in which I was adding my field, okay? I mean, that's pretty simple for those who know, and maybe not for those who don't know, but I mean, it's the same for whatever happens. And then we have here the views. That is just going to rewrite, the way my field is going to be inserted in the existing view. And here, basically, it's going to be added after the analytic account ID. I did the job for us, of course, and here what I did is that I prepared my module for Odoo 18. And we have actually, had to change, the models and the views. The models now is pretty much the same, but it's just on a different model, the budget line model. As we saw, it was different. About the views, it's also the same logic. I had to simply rewrite a bit how my view was written, so that now it's applied on my new model, and also applied, after a different field, which is now my currency ID. It was a bit technical, maybe I lost some of you, but what you need to know is that basically I just had to move my field from one model to another, and I had to adapt my XML view. Then I need to ask myself the question, okay, I have some changes in my database, but do I have some changes on my data? And basically, if you just keep things as it is, you don't have any change of the data. The field is still the same. So of course it's inserted in a different place, but the field is still the same. So actually I could have not written any script and that would be okay. But I want to change myself, so what I did is that I still wanted to do it. And for that, I decided that as the name of my model changed, I want to change the name of my field as well. And here I want to move it from budget responsible, which was the case in Odoo 16, to analytic responsible, my new name in Odoo 18. To do that, what I did is that I write it here in my modules in Odoo 18, a migrations script. So to insert it, you just create a folder and you put it there with the version of the module. You see that my script is very small actually, because it's very simple what I ask him to do. I just want him to remove my field from, to rename my field, on my budget line from budget responsible to analytic responsible. I don't get this formula out of my head, I don't wake up in the morning and think, yeah, that's the one that I need to use. Of course, what you need to do is to investigate and, let's say, get trained on that. But for you to know, there is actually a documentation available online for that, which is kind of a library, a dictionary where you get all of the util functions definitions. And actually, if we look at the fields, one of them is called rename field, and that's simply what I did. I just come here, I look at what I need to provide as argument, very good, and then I applied it in my file. Good. Next step. Yes, maybe just before that. If you want to know really about some very technical upgrade scripts, things that are way more technical than what I showed right now, you can still do it by attending the talk of tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the Hall 11B from my colleague Alvaro, which is going to go into details in how, let's say, a technical script can be written. All right, Actually, most of the things are done now. So what we need to do is just to prepare for the upgrade. For that, I can say goodbye to my version 16 because we will not see it anymore, and we can go into the terminal. So what I will do is that I will shut my connection with the database. And I will type here some command so that I can make the switch from my source code to 16 to 18. I told you every version has a different source code. And my first step actually is to switch to the new version of my code. For that, yes, it's git switch 18.0, which is basically a GitHub command that allows me to switch from one branch to another because the code of Odoo is hosted on GitHub in different branches. And then I need to do it, of course, for the 3 different folders that represent Odoo, which are Odoo Community, Odoo Enterprise, and Design Themes. All right, so you see it's pretty fast, and then once it is done, that's it. Okay, so now my source code is up to date in Odoo 18. Next step is to upgrade my data. And for that, I need to upgrade it to Odoo 18. And that's actually at this point that that I need you actually to tell me about the command line that we saw on upgrade.odoo.com. Who is willing to write it down in my computer? Nobody? Okay, I need to do it then. No, actually, it's very simple because you just need to copy and paste it, okay? But in that case, of course, I just need to adapt a bit the name of my database, and of course, I need to adapt the target version that is placed here. Something more is that I need to provide it with a subscription code. I cannot upgrade if I'm not, let's say, if I don't have a paid database, So if I go back then to my command, I will, of course, cheat a bit, and I will not type it fully with my mind, but here is my command. So it's basically just what we saw on the upgrade.odoo.com. I just here tackle my database, which is called OXP Upgrade Live. I do it in testing first. I told you, one test a day keeps the doctor away, so I first need to test it, of course. I do it on my database, then, which is this one. I target the version 18, and my contract number is this one. I start, and here we will have a very nice script that will be launched, of course, because Odoo will need to upgrade my database from 2 versions. So first apply the upgrade script of Odoo 17 and apply the upgrade script of Odoo 18. We could spend time here together to take a look at these very beautiful lines that are going to be written, but I have maybe another idea in mind. I will maybe ask you, for the volunteers, to scan the QR code that I'm going to display here on the screen. So, yes. So for those who are willing, I'll just ask you a simple question, and so that you can answer it. There is no trick, okay. Okay, so I see that a lot of people are joining, that's very good. So what I will ask you to do is to answer one simple question. This question is, what are we going to do during the upgrade? And you have 4 choices, actually. Okay, so. Okay, people are really, of course, looking forward to Odoo 20, but guys, it's in 1 year. Maybe it's a bit too early. Okay, that's close. People are still willing, some of you are willing to discover the new master production schedule. I think I like it like this. Yes, you're right. Why not trying to bat a world record today? Actually, I don't know if you are aware of this, but a database exists online, and it is called whackfp.odoo.com. And if you access it and add just a /whack afterwards, you can play a very, very nice game. Let's try to do it together. Well, actually, I will do it, but you can still watch me. So I need... Oh, it was unplanned. Actually, my internet connection is too low. I cannot play. So it's a failure. But actually, at least FP is happy to see you, so... actually, it's still funny, so yes, we can keep it like this. No, okay, but yes, if you maybe are at some point willing to make a break during the Odoo experience, don't hesitate to join that page and play a bit. The world record was actually 300 points, okay? And I was really sure that I was going to beat it, but unfortunately, I will not be able to show you. Okay, so maybe if we come back to the terminal to see what happens. Basically here, what we see is that we have a bit of the details of what the scripts are doing. Most of the information are just maybe not really relevant for us because it's just some changes that are done in the database. But some maybe at some point, because for example here we saw it was discussing about crossover budget, which is actually removed, and so it explains why and how it is removed. And also here, for example, very interesting, one of my custom view is disabled because it's a custom view for my 16 module, which is not working anymore. So anyway, what we have here in the terminal is just a complete description of what is happening during the upgrade. It's interesting, but actually, if you don't have time to read at it, completely, just know that it is also accessible once I will open my database afterwards. You see, total processing time is 3 minutes in that case, not really long, but it's of course because I only upgrade from 2 versions, and the fact that I don't have a lot of data. Okay, so let's take here the name of my testing database, because that's actually my last step, is just to launch my database with the code in version 18. To do that, it's actually the same command as the one I used to launch my database at the first time in 16, but now I need to do it in 18. And what I need to do is especially here, so if I access my command again, yeah, perfect. So I need to adapt the name of my database because now it's my testing one that I need to add. But I need as well to launch it with the right version of my code. And in that case, I need to then adapt my add-ons folder, let's say, to make it to add-ons 18. I click on enter, my database is launched, and now I can simply go back to my local host. So goodbye Odoo 16, and now if I open it, I will be now in Odoo 18. Very good. So you see, so I'm a bit, of course, people are talking to me while I'm connected, but one of them is actually the Odoo bot telling me, congratulations, you upgraded to Odoo 17, and a bit below, congratulations, you upgraded to Odoo 18. Okay, and I have a bit of a summary of what are the most important changes in each version. And also, what is very interesting to me, and I was not aware of this actually before preparing this talk, is that you have also a small summary of the custom views that were deactivated during the upgrade. That you keep a track at least of all the things that may impact your customization. On the right is just a small, let's say, highlight to the release note, telling me what are the news. I can close it. Here the suspense is complete because I need to check now if my budget is still in that version. I hope it is. Let's go to my analytic budget, and yes, budget for ISO XP is here, but now I need to check if the field of my custom module is there as well, and that's the case. So Mark Demo indeed is part of my line. So it works. So now my module is now completely, transferred from one version to another. Okay, thank you very much. I know that I did not ask you to upload, so that's very kind to you to do it. Okay, so now that I did, let's say, the difficult part, now it's just for me to tell you about the best practices I know regarding upgrade. So it will be a list, basically, but maybe you can think about it when you will come to that topic in the future. So just to summarize, what we saw is that an upgrade is a matter of time, of cost, and of organization. It takes time to practice it, to test it. You have a cost as well, because of course you need to ask people to invest in it and maybe to adapt your code. And it's also a matter of organization, because you need to insert it in the way you actually do and run your company in the usual time. That's not so easy. Our best practices are the following. So first, it's important to plan the upgrade. Okay? So I mean, you know, you are maybe in Odoo in version 17, 18. You know, because I told you about that the support has maybe a limited duration, depending on your hosting. you can then plan on the long term, maybe that next year or in 2 years, you should upgrade to the next version. Depending on your level of customization, the size of your database, and maybe your workload as well, because maybe your workload is not the same during the full year, then you can try to find the best possible time in the future to properly organize the database, your upgrade, and do it at that moment. You should as well document the project. So when I say project, it's basically your implementation project. If you are coming to do some customization at some point in the database, keep a track of that as much as possible. Here I show you an example of what we do at Odoo, is that we have, let's say we use a project application for that, and we have some task, let's say gathering all the documentation regarding why we did the development, how we did it, and what is, let's say, the purpose of that. And that's indeed what we can try to apply as much as possible in our own implementation, in our own database, because that's at some point going to be a checklist that we can check every time that we want to upgrade. Then it's important when you do the upgrade to test it. I told you already about that, but to test it technically, which means you have a project documentation that is done, so you know what are your customizations, so you just check that everything is still working in the new version. If it is not, and you have a traceback, you just need to adapt your code and your script to make it work. I mean, this one is obvious, but the next one may not be so much obvious because you need also, yes, of course, it's important to know that you can adapt your custom code even before the upgrade script is available. Today, Odoo 19 code is released, so you can access it. And so nothing prevents you to already take some of your code that you did in 18 and already see how to adapt it in 19. So you don't need to wait for the very last moment to check, for that kind of adaptation. Next point is to test the upgrade functionally. I mean, you are at the Odoo experience, so you are maybe the good students here that about Odoo because you want to look and you want to get to know about the new features. That's really good. That's really good. But it could happen, of course, that some people don't do that work, and they're a bit surprised, when they come to the new version. I mean, we saw accounting, inventory, very important apps can change a lot in terms of interface, especially. So it's important to explore the new version, to see what are the differences, and to train the users on the new flow and interface. And you do it even before you do the upgrade on the production. Let's say the previous advice were, let's say, for customers, for people using the database. Maybe now we can discuss about Odoo partners, because, of course, most of you, maybe, or some of you, are. It's important, according to Odoo, because that's what we do as well, to sell the upgrade to the customer. You know that the upgrade will take some time, that you need to adapt the code, that you need to train the users, to take, let's say, invest some of your time to do that. Let's say, by experience, I know that some partners kind of forget to integrate that in the scope of their budget of the project at the start, and that's probably something that you could work with. So I think we have 3 options. Maybe there are more, but here that's the one that I have in mind. One of the options is to integrate from the start the upgrade cost in the budget scope. You know that you need some time at some point. You know the project may be long. Okay, so think about it from the start. Second case is to decide to invoice your customers based on the time and material that you spend doing the upgrade. That's, of course, something that you can do, and that a lot of partners are doing. But in that case, try at least to make it clear for the customers about that policy from the start. Finally, and that's what we do at Odoo, we make some regular invoicing. Of course, that's something that is not always easy to explain or easy to bring. But of course, if you decide to invoice a certain amount, depending on the size of the code, to the customers, you are now maybe more, let's say, strongest, way of making sure that you can upgrade all your customers, that you can compensate the cost of the upgrade for each of them. Then, it's important to develop in the Odoo logic. It would not come to your mind, probably, that you want to convert the point of sale into a custom recruitment workflow, okay? So it's probably not a good idea. And that's, of course, a very obvious example, but still, something that we notice a lot is that people are trying to customize Odoo in a way that may not seem so logical. If we take an arrow, okay, which represents the standard evolution of the tool, and that we take a second arrow, which is a wrong customization according to me. Here what we see is that with the time ongoing, let's say as a fact that we take 2 different directions, the technical depth of the project is increasing more and more. While if we now take the example of a good customization which is willing to stick to the standard as much as possible and to eventually maybe get back to it at some point, in that case, you try to reduce the technical debt of your customers as much as possible. And that's something that should always motivate how you are developing a module in Odoo. Finally, last best practices that I can provide you with is to use all the available resources. I told you, it's possible for any customers in any versions, in any hosting, to benefit from the help of the support for the upgrade. Okay? Of course, then it depends on, okay, can we access or not the database? That's another question. But think about it, like the Odoo support will always be there to, let's say, bring you some help in that case. The Odoo documentation as well is there. I told you about upgrade utils, and you have a lot of other documentation online that can help you with that. And you have also some Odoo dedicated services. Just before the talk, I was just moving around in the OXP, and one of the partners asked me, like, is it possible that we are, that you can, let's say, help customers to upgrade and not have access to the data of the customer because it's sensitive data and we don't want them to have access to it. And yes, it's possible. So the upgrade team is very flexible, and that's really important that you think about it, to try to find some agreement with the upgrade team so that you can upgrade any kind of customers in any situations. Of course, then it depends also, maybe in some cases, that would be based on the success pack that you may have, for that. Okay, I think that's it for this point, and so we arrive now at the conclusion. I truly hope that these talks help you, to get a better overview of what an upgrade is from a technical, a functional, and a commercial point of view. But actually, maybe to know that, what I can try is just to go on the internet and type, my research that I did before, 3 biggest human fears. And it seems, yes, upgrade is not anymore in the list. Perfect. It means that I did the job well. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Antoine. Actually, most questions of the pad have already been answered, but while people are writing down, we can already answer the few ones. So when can we expect the upgrade scripts for 19 to be available?
Good question. Indeed, I told you in my slide that it should be, in a small delay, a few weeks probably. It's very complicated to give a precise date because we don't know it actually. But what we plan is to let's say, be able for our own database, Odoo.com, to upgrade to Odoo 19 in October, I think. And then, depending on how it goes and how good it is, we'll release it on the different platforms. So usually we start with Odoo.com, and then Odoo.sh comes with a bit of delay. Let's say it's not really a promise, but I think we can expect it to happen before the end of the year. So yes, maybe around October and November.
Okay, and you also talked about the fact that we now support up to 5 versions backwards for certain hosting solutions. So is there a fee associated with the fact that we support those versions?
So the fee is applied in the case where you are on-premise, so in that case. So it's only for the on-premise situation. Because actually on Odoo.com you cannot be on a further version. It's a question of server. Customers that are on Odoo Online will be upgraded at some point, even if they don't test it. So it's important, of course, to keep that in mind. On Odoo.sh, what we want is that by default this is 3 years, so you need to know that as well. So you may get, let's say, a message saying I need to upgrade now, it's too late. I think that's up to you then to discuss with your account manager and find also an extension to be applied. But same, it's a question of server actually. Like we will not keep for one customer, for example, a SSH server in Odoo 15 or 16 at some point. So they will need to upgrade just because of that technical reason. Well, 16 was not a good example in that case, but you get my point. So yes, so no extra fee in that case, but you people will have to upgrade at some point.
Okay, and then you also talked about how we are supposed to upgrade customized databases. Is there any difference with using Studio? So like how are Studio modifications handled in this upgrade process?
That's a good question as well. So if I go back to my database here, for those who are a bit more technical or who don't like Studio, usually you don't like Studio because it is not a development. So actually when I do some customization with Studio, it's not installed in my database, but it's not important. What I do is that I create records. So basically, I create some views, I create some fields, I create maybe some automations, whatever, but this is still record in Odoo. So it's not a Python file that you have in a specific module. So the process is not really exactly the same, because then when you will do the upgrade, you have no module to update. So what you have to do is to update your customization in Studio. As you have for any modules in Odoo, we have some scripts, some upgrade scripts for Studio as well. So someone in the upgrade team is working on a script for Studio telling, okay, if I did a customization like this in 18, it should be applied like this in 19. But of course, some corner cases can be found. And that's why when you do an upgrade with some Studio customization, you may see at some point that the views are deactivated, that maybe some views are broken. It's normal. It's part of the job then to try to adapt all the records of Studio, in that way. So it's a bit different. It's more like when you use Studio, it's more like a reactive way of fixing the bugs. You cannot adapt your Studio customization before trying to do the upgrade, of course. While when you do a module, you can do it, because nothing prevents you, of course, to adapt the module, push it in another database in a new version, and see if it works. So yeah, two different processes, but for Studio, it's important to note that the support is helping for that. So if you test the upgrade and tell the support, yes, my Studio customization has been removed, as long as you are in the testing phase, they can help you to adapt it. If you do it in production, I think it should be checked, but probably in that case, a bit more complicated to adapt the Studio customization afterwards.
Okay, next question is, why do we not make a kind of a developer changelog, so a list of changed model names, fields, etc., or if we have one?
That's a good question. I think the thing is that we have some release notes, and as you may see, like release notes are more and more, let's say, communicated at Odoo. In the past, it was not so well documented. Now, for each intermediate version, we have some changes. It's true that this is functional changes, not really technical changes. I think that's a question that you could ask probably to the upgrade booth. So in all 7, you have a dedicated booth for that. You can come and ask this question. It's interesting. But probably, maybe, yes, at some point we could have a technical release note available. But if it's not the case, that's probably for some reason, either like because it's not really easy to do or because it's not something that we want to do. But I cannot really say that. Okay.
I'm seeing it multiple times, so I'll still ask it. So is there, in the case of like a customer that's on Odoo Online, they're in an intermediate version, and they would like to have migration to like Odoo.sh, so in a major version, how would that happen if the upgrade script is not readily available? So do they need to downgrade or?
Yes, downgrade is not possible, unfortunately, for that kind of customer. There is something, but most probably I will not be able to find it. I mean, I think it's important for indeed everyone to think about that constraint, that the downgrade is not possible. So let's imagine that someone created a database in Odoo, let's say 18.2, like something around here. So he was maybe creating it in March, for example. What happens is that if this person is going to move to SH, he has to wait for the upgrade script to 19 to be released, so most probably 1 year later. Or he needs to create a new database in 18 and moves data from a database to another. That's a constraint. And now that we know that maybe it's not a good idea if a customer is going to, or if you are willing to customize your database a lot at some point, to create it on SaaS on an intermediate version. It's important to know that you can, with a specific URL, I don't have it in mind now, but I think I can try. You know what? If I go to odoo.com trial, then I think it has LTS equal 1. Yeah, that's it. This URL here means that I'm going to create my database in the last major version that is available. So I will be in that case, because it's today that it is released, but in 19.0. But if I did it yesterday, I would have created it in 18.0. And once you are in the major version, you will not, let's say, be forced to move to a minor version. Okay, so you can stay there. So if you have any doubt that at some point you might need to upgrade or to move, to Odoo.sh, that's maybe a good idea to create the online database then in the major version and not in an intermediate one.
Okay, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more. So still regarding Studio, because we talked already about it. So if I had a need to customize something for a field that was missing, for example, in 17, and then in standard 19, it is being added as a new feature, how is it handled in this kind of process?
That's That's interesting. I think the thing is that here, if we discuss about Studio, it's not so easy because probably then we are maybe on Odoo Online or whatever. That could be something to discuss maybe with the support of Odoo, because once you are testing the upgrade, then you feel like, okay, I don't need to have two different fields who do the same job. And maybe you can try to explain them, okay, can you write a script, a specific script for me to move the data from my custom field to the new field that is standard, and then I get rid of my customization. I think that's something that they can do, but they can do it, of course, if you prevent them, if you tell them and if you tell them during the testing phase. If that's on a different context, imagine that you are on a SH, this field is coming from one of your module, then that could be up to you just to write down your script and to explain that the data that were on your custom field go to the new field in standard. And that's, here what you can find in the upgrade utils documentation about records, so you can come here and decide to view exactly how to convert data then from one model to another or from one field to another. That's something that is possible.
Okay, and then still regarding Studio, so in the upgrade process, if they have to reach out to the support, are all type of customization done through Studio supported, or is there any limit to it?
It should. If you have any doubt, probably what you can do is on odoo.com/help, when you click on report a bug, because that's usual process, let's say, to contact the support, and then here click on which kind of issue you got. At some point, somewhere, you should get, let's say, the terms and conditions that you can access on odoo.com. Well, I don't see it there let's say, on the spot. Same, it could be discussed. I think indeed that the idea behind the fact that you pay more for Odoo Studio, because it's a different pricing on odoo.com, is because then you have the support, for your customization. Maybe one of the limits that you could see is that if you create an automation rule, and you use some Python code in it, then you are a bit in the limit in between like a development and a studio customization. So think maybe about that when you are doing it. Just to know that actually if you do it on your on an online database, it would trigger an upsell, and ask you maybe to pay some maintenance fees for that. But if you are, let's say, managed by a partner, that's a different story. And so maybe at some point Python code will not be maintained by the support if that's something that is done even with Studio installed in the database.
Okay, and just lastly, so the feature you discovered actually when trying the upgrade, so the fact that Odoo is telling you which views have been deactivated in the upgrade process, is this limited to views, or is it also extended to other parts of custom code like JavaScript files or Python files?
That's a good question. I would say, I think if we come back to what was stated, I'm not sure it was really, let's say, limited in the way it was described. It's not this one. It was administrator. Disable views. Fields rename. I think it's kind of probably exhaustive, but I did not test. Okay, so it should be checked. But maybe indeed you have here a bit more information than simply the views. The views are, of course, the more challenging one, but it's a more important one because that's really surprising for someone to then open an app and see that everything has been removed. We could feel like, okay, actually maybe there is an issue, but actually maybe it's just that the data are still here, but are just not displayed in the interface. So yeah, good question, but it should be checked.
All right, I guess that's it. Thank you, Antoine.
Thank you too.